Hello, this is Leslie here and I'm welcoming you to my new look, Handmade in Windsor Lab. And today I'm going to be reviewing the Altenew box set of stamps, which is volume 1, so I assume they're going to do some more. And you're getting a quick look at the cards that I'm going to make. All 3 of them will be in this video. This is everything I used other than tools. And here's the box set. It's the first one, so I think they will be doing some more. And it's the Modern Blooms magazine. The thing that I didn't like the most is that there isn't really a stamping guide sheet like there is normally for Altenew layering stamps. So this is how the stamps came, and the stencil and the dies, and there wasn't really a proper layering guide. I did eventually find one, which I'll show you in a sec, and that's on the back of the magazine, but unfortunately it's tiny, and I'll show you in a photo in a minute. They're the 3 dies that come with the set, and that's the stamp set. So here we go. So there's the stamp step-by-step layering guide, and that's on an A4 size magazine, and that's one of the 1-inch cube inks, and it's tiny. This is what I meant. This is what would normally come with a stamp set. Here's my swatch book. This is Jennifer Maguire's free downloadable way of swatching your inks. And this is me choosing my inks. I used Pink Pearl, Coral Bliss, Heartbeat, Vineyard Berry, Sunkissed, Orange Cream and Autumn Blaze, Firefly, Grassfield and Shadow Creek, and they're all on Altenew's dye inks. I'm using some white stamping card. This is a Sheena Douglas stuff, but any heavyweight white stamping card, and I'm using my stamping platform. Today I'm using my Misty. I do have others, and I'm very sorry, I've got a new filming set up and I realised I wasn't quite on the screen. So all I did to start with was try and make sure my stamps were conditioned properly. So I actually stamped twice, but it was a bit blotchy, so I'm trying to condition the stamp with an eraser. I've tried every trick in the book on stamps before to get them conditioned so that they stamp clearly first time, and some just never will. This is the Pink Pearl. This is the lightest ink that I'm using, and it's still quite uneven, so I'm trying the next trick, which is rub it down with a microfiber cloth. Again, sorry, I'm slightly off the screen. There we go. And stamp it with Versamark ink on some scrap paper. And I was hoping that this would mean I didn't have to double stamp all the way through, because I'm going to stamp quite a few of these flowers and then use them on lots of different cards. So that's me stamping it in Versamark ink, and it does make a difference. It does help the dye ink to cling to the stamps a little bit better. I'm not actually going to use the images I'm stamping right now. I'm just going to use those as a guide for my layering, because without a layering guide I found it quite difficult to layer some of these up. Off screen I'm just going to die cut 6 flowers and 6 leaves. No, sorry, 3 leaves, not 6 leaves. Just so that I've got, while I've got the layers set up, I can stamp lots at the same time. So I was going to leave the stamp where it was, pop my original stamped panel back in, and use this trick of using the outside of the die cut to layer up the stamps. But I realised as I was going along I'd put it too close to the top of my stamping platform for the other layers that hang on to that bottom piece. So I'm having to move it down and realign my stamp. It would have been easier if I'd not put it quite so close to the edge, because I wouldn't have had to have relined this stamp back up. So that's me realigning the stamp, and I've just put it lower down so that I can get my die cuts in there. And there's me stamping onto my first die cut. Off we go. So I'm going to stamp 6 flowers, and you can see it's still quite blotchy. It does even out, like any dye ink, it tends to even out as it dries, so it won't be as splotchy as it looks at the moment. And every time I switch onto a new dye colour, I do tend to reverse my pile so that I'm stamping on the driest one, so it's got a bit of time to dry, but it will dry even more. And I'm not stamping to start with on a die cut, I'm using that layer underneath to see if I've got the alignment right. And I didn't think I had it quite right on that one, so I put a piece of acetate and wiggled it around until I thought it was in the right place. You can see that there. And then I picked up the stamp and tried again. That was me conditioning the stamp there with some Versamark again. And then I was happy, so I went through and stamped the next lot. So that's the second layer. So the first layer was in Pink Pearl, this one's in Coral Bliss, which is the second. This is all one set of the Altenew inks. So you can buy the mini cubes in a 4-pack, which is what I use. I don't have any of the large Altenew inks. I've only got mini cubes in all of them. So this is the third layer, so this is going to be in Heartbeat. And again, that was me swapping the pile, so I'm stamping on the driest one first, conditioning the stamp with Versamark, which is what seemed to have most effect. And stamping through. And you can see you get into a rhythm and you can stamp quite quickly. And if you've got a complicated layering stamp already set up, you may as well stamp a batch like this if you can. So this trick of using the die cut and just doing blank die cuts, it's a lot quicker than stamping lots and lots of layers and then die cutting each one individually, because lining up the dies each time around every flower and getting them exactly right is quite tricky, or it takes a lot of time, even if it's not tricky once you've got the flower stamped. This is the final layer, and this is Vineyard Berry. There is an outline for this stamp set, so it's actually got 5 layers, but I decided I wasn't going to use the 5th layer on the flowers. I will use it later on in the cards. I think in the stamp set I used every stamp except 2 of the small greetings. I think I didn't use a hello and a thank you. I used every other stamp in the set across the 3 cards. So I've got quite a lot of use out of the stamp set, and it is a lovely stamp set. But if you're new to layered stamps, which I guess if you're buying a box set, these are a much lower price point for stamps and dies from Altenew. So I guess it might tempt people to use them. But of course, if you don't have the thing that you would usually have, which is the layering guide, it makes it a little bit tricky. So that would be the one thing I would say. I think for the price point, you get a lot for the money. And the stamps are beautiful and the dies are really good. But they missed out a really simple thing, which they could have printed a simple stamping guide in the magazine rather than the teeny tiny images that are on the back. It would have helped if it had been somewhere close to the same size as the stamps, so that you could see where the layers were supposed to sit, because it is quite a complex flower. I'm stamping the centres now on the video, and obviously they're actually quite easy to line up in comparison with the outlines, because you've left a white space for them, so you can see where they go a little bit more easily. There's 3 layers to those. I think I'm on the 3rd layer now, and I used Sunkissed was the palest, Orange Cream, and I'm just coming on to the 3rd layer here, which is the Autumn Blaze. And as you see, I didn't have so much time working out where to put that, but now I've got 6 quite large stamps, stamped flowers, all die cut, ready to go, and it really didn't take that long because I only had to do the lining up once, and the die cuts I could just cut randomly. Now I'm going to do the same process for the leaves. The leaves have 3 layers, including the outline, which I am going to use. I should have stamped it first, really. But this is the 1st layer, and I did double stamp on the 1st layer. So I did double stamp, I think, on all the layers for the leaves. I was only doing 3 of those, so it didn't take so long. So this is the outline. It's about to go on now, so that's the outline going on. And I used Firefly, Grassfield and Shadow Creek. I thought the nice thing about these stamps was if you've got any sort of pink, purple, whatever colour set, maybe a different colour for the centres, probably a yellow and orange set, and a green set of layering inks, you could stamp. So you would only need 3 sets of layered colour inks to get yourself going with this box set. and as it's got the dies as well, it was a really good introduction if you've never used the Altenew layering stamps. So I've got a 6x6 white square card blank and two 5x7. So these are quite big cards. These are 5x7 inches and 6x6 inches. So they're quite big cards. You could use smaller cards, obviously. So with two flowers on these quite big cards, it made enough impact that I didn't think I needed much else. And I cut up some of the leaves to make the greenery go a bit further because I'd only stamped 3 of the leaves. And that's me. I'm just having a play. The 5x7s, I went for 1 in craft colour and 1 in white. And that's me just having a play, working out where things are going to go. So on the larger 5x7 white card, I'm using the outline stamp from the set, and I'm using the palest. This is the Pink Pearl ink, and I'm just randomly going to stamp that all over the background. I'm not too concerned if it isn't a perfect image every time because it's just in a pale ink all over the background, but they did stamp really well. The outline stamped really well, and I didn't actually condition this stamp. It was fine as it was for the purpose I was using it for here, which was just to create a very quick background, and that was really quick to create. So that's a nice way to fill the white space without taking too much of the white space away. And I'm playing again with the leaves. I always do this. I mess around and move them time and time again. And I'm going to stamp the Hello Sweet Friend, and that's on the stamp set from the magazine. I just always, with any sentiment stamp, I would always stamp on some scrap first, and I'm giving it a go, stamping it straight on my card, just on a stamp block, because my theory is if it doesn't come out perfectly, I can always stick something over the top of it with the greeting on instead. I could have always cut something out. And I'm just using thin foam pads on the back of the flowers, and a tiny bit of the tonic tacky glue. You don't need a lot. I think when people start crafting, one of the biggest things to do is put too much glue. I'm just putting tiny dots, and it spreads itself out underneath anything. You only need tiny dots to hold things down. Now here we go, this is the stencil. So this is the 6x6 card, and I'm just going to use 2 of the images on the stencil, move the stencil around, and the sponge that I'm using, believe it or not, that's a Primark makeup sponge. I got a big box, some of which my 14-year-old daughter stole for her makeup, and this is one of the ones that I've got in my craft stash, and it's just a Primark makeup sponge that come in great big boxes for not a huge amount of money, and they're perfect for stenciling and things like that, with small ink pads especially that you don't want to use a big brush or something on. I didn't worry too much that I'd gone off the edge of the stencil in places because I knew I could cover it up with the flowers, so I wasn't too careful about masking the edges. I just held it and inked through it and didn't worry too much. And I left a tiny bit of white space down the bottom. Again, I'm sorry, I'm slightly... There we are, I've moved it now. That was the Miss You stamp. Again, I'm stamping in black VersaFine, which is what I used on the other card as well. And I just left a tiny bit of white space in the bottom corner of the card where I stamped the Miss You. And again, it came out beautifully. So it does show the stamps are fairly good quality, especially for, I think the magazine is $12.99, if I remember rightly, which for a large stamp set, 3 dies, a stencil, and of course the magazine, is actually really good value. So I didn't have a problem with the quality of the stamps for the money. I just wish they put a proper stamping guide somewhere in the magazine, even if it was a cut out and keep in the magazine, not in the packaging. I'm on to my 3rd card now, and I decided I wanted a big sentiment across the centre. And I'm using, this is an older one from Crafty Potential. I don't think that this one's still available. I think they made 1 batch and never made any more. But any large sentiment across the centre, and I've just cut the outline in white and the outline with the letter dies in black, and I'm just popping it back over on layers. It's quicker than doing it the other way round and sticking individual letters. So there we go, hugs and kisses. And then this is the small floral cluster, which is in the stamp set. It's not a layering stamp, it's just an outline. And there is the small die for it. I didn't use the small die. I didn't cut any of these out. And I'm just using it again randomly over the background. And on the last one, I don't know why I did it, it never works. I double stamped. I put the stamp back down after I'd lifted it because I'd missed a corner off it. So in the top corner of the image at the moment, there is a double stamp. So my quick background, which I wasn't too worried about, I've got a double stamp on it, but I will cover that up later. So I didn't worry. And I just used some of the Altenew iridescent spray just to give it a bit of shine in the background, just to make it a bit more interesting on the craft card. Even though I've heat set it, it's still a bit damp and I'm still getting sparkly fingers. And I changed my mind which way round, couldn't decide, tried it the other way, went back to that way, and eventually decided to do it landscape rather than portrait. And this just sticking it together with some foam squares and foam tape. And the magic tea ruler, the best thing on the planet for getting things straight, because I'm terrible at getting things straight. And where I double stamped, I'm putting a great big sequin. So this is a mixed bag of iridescent sequins. Some are big, some are small. So I'm just making sure that I position a large one over the top of the worst bit where I double stamped. You can still see it, but I don't think anybody would notice. It's only me that would notice because I know it's there. So that's the last card. So that's all 3 cards made now. And other than one of the small dies and 2 of the greeting stamps, I used everything that was in the kit. And 3 quite different cards, all in one colourway. So I think it's a really good set. If you've never had Altenew or layering stamps, it's a nice starter. This is the free papers in the magazine, and they do fit the dies, or at least the large flower and the leaves do. But I couldn't find anything anywhere on the printed paper to fit the smallest die, which I thought was a bit of a shame because it was an outline die, so having some coloured images for the one that was just the outline would have been quite fun. Even this pattern paper fit with the stencil, so you could do other techniques, adding glitter and things over it. But you can see the die fits with quite a few of the images. And here we go, one last look at my cards. And if you want any information about anything that I've mentioned, hopefully I'll have added it to my blog or in the information below. So I'll put a link to my blog in the video as well. Thank you and goodbye.